Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the Mythic and Masterpiece cards that caught my eye when I first looked through the set, and so these are the cards that I'm going to be chasing from the Mythic and Masterpiece range in Zendikar Rising. Let's get into it. I'm going to start with the Masterpieces, and the first of the Masterpieces is Rampaging Baloths. Rampaging Baloths is 16 mana for an 8/8 with Trample and Landfall, so whenever you match 4 or more gems, you're going to create a Beast token. This stands out to me as super cool for a number of reasons. One, you put this with New Garruk, and you're going to be creating so many Beast tokens, it's terrifying, especially if you factor in the whole leader Beast thing. You got a mono green walker with a whole bunch of green conversion, with an enchantment for Song of Creation that's going to enable us to just spam play green gem conversion, and a creature that's now going to be playing a bunch of beast tokens, which is going to reinforce whatever your strongest creature is, probably Elder Gargaroth, maybe just the Baloths themselves. But whichever way you look at it, you're going to be able to make so many beast tokens and make creatures so strong with this because of that this is going to be beautiful, especially with New Garruk. This is maybe going to maintain that Garruk keeps his S tier ranking. It's going to be beautiful, guys. When I get it, you can be rest assured I will be making a video on Elder Gargaroth with Rampaging Baloths and Garruk. Scoot Mob is one of 2 new insects that do dirty things. So Scoot Mob is 6 mana. You'll see that it's a leader. It's got this beautiful little leader thing over here. It's a leader insect. There aren't that many things that make insects. There's another Scoot Swarm, that's going to go ahead and make insects. But if you pair the 2 of them together, you're going to be able to do, yep, you guessed it, dirty things. It is, yep, you guessed it, green. And at the beginning of your turn, this creature gets +X/+X, where X is equal to 1 plus the number of land supports. Now, the X boosts where it's equal to the number of land supports is inconsequential. The important thing is this leader insect, because Scoot Swarm is going to be making a heck ton of insects. And with it making a heck ton of insects from, well, you guessed it, green gem conversion, you're going to be making this Scoot Mob the swollest little bug you've ever seen. This thing's going to get thick as all beans. This is going to be a big bug, big bug. Very scary, much fun, excited for bug. Stoneforge Mystic, this is one of my 2 primary chase cards for the set. I think it's one of the 2 best masterpieces in the set, so I'm going to be chasing this one and one a little bit later in the list. But Stoneforge Mystic in Puzzle Quest is incredibly powerful. It's somehow even better than it was in Paper Magic, and in Paper Magic, that thing was crazy busted. I mentioned in another video, Jace the Mind Sculptor. This thing made up a deck called Cawblade with Jace the Mind Sculptor back in the day. If you know that, it was a blue-white control deck that was just absolutely filthy. And this thing is an absolute filth mongrel in Puzzle Quest 2. It's 8 mana for a 4/5, and when this creature enters the battlefield, you pick one of the first 4 different equipment cards and fetch that card. So not only when this thing enters the battlefield do you get to fetch equipment, but whenever this creature attacks, you move the first equipment card from your hand onto the board without paying its mana cost. Just boom, there it is. So yeah, boom, there it is. Embercleave is now going to be you've got an 8 mana creature that's going to fetch Embercleave and attack and immediately put Embercleave down on the battlefield. So that 23 mana, super boom, you're sort of going to die really fast because your critters now have double strike. Yeah, that's now going to be coming down for free and fetched for 8 mana on top of that. So Stoneforge Mystic is absolutely terrifying. It's a card that even Greg is going to be able to use to great effect. It's scary, guys. It's really scary. Thada Acquisitor. This is kind of the number 3 masterpiece on my list. I absolutely want it. I want it so bad. It's going to be so good. The only thing that holds it back is that your opponent actually has to have artifacts, which they probably will, but maybe they won't. So it's 10 mana for a 5/5. It's a legendary critter. It's got unblockable. And when this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, fetch the first artifact card from your opponent's library and move that to play under your control. Now, I know that I've said on multiple occasions that I don't like playing with my opponent's cards, but that is just that I don't like getting their cards and then having to charge up their mana and then play them. So like things like Oko and stuff like that, don't like, because they also take up space in my hand. But this is just free goodness, where I get to put it on the board, I don't have to pay for it, I steal it from my opponent's deck, and it also means that because it's taking it from my opponent's deck, they aren't going to draw it. So if your opponent is playing a deck that relies on some kind of artifact support, they're just not going to get it. I see this getting you things like Chromatic Orrery or Embercleave or nonsense like that a heck of a lot, especially because there's a whole bunch of stuff for equipment in this set. This card could be a dirty, dirty card. Like, dirty, dirty card. Very excited. Warden Instigator is on this list because I have a thing for goblins. You're going to see it as a relative theme in all of my little chase lists for Zendikar. I love goblins, and as such, I love Warden Instigator. So when this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, the first goblin card in your hand gains full mana. I wish that this stuck a little bit more true to paper and said, when this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, the first goblin card without full mana in your hand gains full mana, so that when it would deal damage, it would, because it has double strike, it would get you 2 goblins on the battlefield for free. But that's not the case. That is what it does in Paper Magic. That's not what it'll do in Puzzle Quest. But nonetheless, a 3/3 double strike that's going to get you a whole bunch of free Goblin Goliaths is a huge win, especially if you're using something like Covetous Snoop to fetch them. And then, yeah, good stuff. I like it very much. It's going to be much fun. I don't know that it's going to be the strongest one, but I think it'll be very fun. And this is my other number one choice for, like, I absolutely want this, and I want it as quickly as possible. Rexiel the Risen Deep. I partially want it because of the art. Look at this thing. This looks like, oh man, it's so beautiful. It looks like my waifu, Like, yeah. No, I'm kidding. It's hideous. It's like the most disgusting art that I've seen on a card in a long time. But Rexiel the Risen Deep is an 8/11, which is very solid, and it has, as long as the total of black and blue gems is 15 or more, this creature gains unblockable, which is kind of sort of not great, but is good in part because of its ability. When I say not great, I mean it's just like an added thing that doesn't do very much for the card. When this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, pick one of the first 4 different spell cards from your opponent's planeswalker from their graveyard, fetch that card, and give it full mana. That is filthy, guys. That is absolutely filthy. You're going to get to take stuff from your opponent's graveyard. It's blue-black. So blue-black is going to be milling your opponent anyways. You've got all this stuff that mills, like, I don't know, Garuda, and then now you're going to go ahead and just start stealing their spells. Now, once again, I'm not a huge fan of playing my opponent's stuff, but if I'm just getting free spells, that means free removal. That means like a whole bunch of like free nonsense that's going to do a whole bunch of sweet goodness. I love this card. I love it so, so very much. So that's it for the Masterpieces. Let's jump to the Mythics. Now, for the Mythics, you're going to have to bear with me. There are a lot of cards in this set that I think are really darn good. Like, there are a lot of cards. So this is going to be a little bit on the longer side as videos go. I'll try and not make it too long, but there's just so much goodness. Starting with Ancient Green Warden. This thing is another filth mongrel. It's an 8/10 with Vigilance for 20. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return the first land support from your graveyard to the board under your control. And when a land support enters the board under your control, convert 6 gems to your planeswalker's colors. This effect can trigger up to 3 times per turn. Oh, good gracious. So let's say that you're playing this with Avatar of Growth, which is going to fetch 2 supports from your deck and put them directly on the battlefield. Avatar of Growth, when it enters the battlefield, is going to convert X gems to green, where X is equal to your green mana bonus. So let's say you're playing one of the mono green walkers that has, like +4 to its mana bonus. That thing's going to convert 4, and then you're going to get 2 lands, which is going to make Ancient Green Warden convert 6 twice, which is actually going to be a net total of 16 green gems converted. Right there, boom, for playing 1 Avatar of Growth. And then let's go ahead and assume that we're running all the other green goodness that you can run. And this is just going to go to town on your opponent. This is so much value. It does so much conversion. There's so much conversion in this set, guys. It's crazy. It's good. Angel of Destiny. This thing is absolutely terrifying for Standard and for Legacy. I'm actually very scared that this card exists in the game now because of the bottom ability. So it's a 5/9 with double strike. It has, while it's on the battlefield, all creatures gain lifelink, whoop-de-doo. But at the end of your turn, if you have full life, your opponent's planeswalker loses half their life rounded up. Which means that, let's say that you're playing in one of the legacy events that have a you need to take X or less damage, and your opponent has this thing in their deck. All they need to do is play this thing, and on their turn, you don't even get time to respond to it until the flash change happens. Maybe that'll allow us to respond to this thing in some meaningful way. But it's not going to necessarily have haste, so it's not going to attack, which means we're not going to be able to play flash critters this time. You lose half of your life. That means that if you're playing like any walker in the game, you're going to have 100 or more health. Haha, you see that? Sorin doesn't exist. No, but really, like, you're going to be losing somewhere in the realm of like 40 to like 65 health. Maybe a little bit more than 65, because I think 135 is the most health that a planeswalker has. But you're going to be losing so much health that first turn. It's absolutely horrifying. And then it gets back to your turn. Let's say that you go ahead and choose to kill this thing. Well, you kill it, but it still did its job. It just chunked half of your life just by entering the battlefield. And all the creatures have lifelink. So your opponent's creatures have lifelink, your creatures have lifelink. But that means that your opponent gets the first swing at you with lifelink. Yeah, they're going to have full life. Yeah, you're going to lose half your life. Yeah, this is going to kill you in a lot, like kill you. Like it's going to destroy your objectives. This thing is a nasty card. It's very strong. It's very scary. I must have it immediately. Ashaya, Soul of the Wild is a little bit of a weird card because it's like simultaneously amazing and then it gimps itself at the same time. It's 20 for a 4/4. At the beginning of your turn, you convert X gems to green, where X is the number of non-token creatures and non-token creature reinforcements you control up to 12. So right there, if you've got a leader down or you've got like, some critter that reinforces a whole bunch of times, then you're going to potentially be able to just convert 12 gems to green every single turn. And then this creature's power toughness becomes equal to the number of green gems until end of turn. Well, that's the unfortunate part, because then reinforcing it really doesn't do very much. Every time you reinforce it, it's going to get +4/+4, but it's going to lose all the power from its reinforcements every turn, because it's just going to have its power toughness change to the number of green gems. So it's cool. Maybe it winds up being really good because it converts just so much. It converts so many gems, but maybe it winds up being garbage. I have to see. This is one that I'm on the fence about, but nonetheless, green gem conversion always, at the very least, gets me interested. Conquerors Pledge. March of the Multitudes is going out of standard, and Conquerors Pledge is going into standard. This makes 9 core ally tokens up to 18 core ally tokens with the kicker. So if you drain 13 mana from your hand after you cast this, you're going to make 18 of those tokens instead. I'm going to go ahead and go on the record and say that I doubt that they've done something that makes it so that these ally tokens come into the battlefield more quickly than the March of the Multitudes tokens came onto the battlefield. But oh my Lanta, do I wish they do. So 18 tokens coming on the battlefield is going to take a long time. But these core ally tokens are now going to count as warriors, and they're now going to count as, not knights. Soldiers. They're going to count as warriors and soldiers. And we have a warrior and we have a soldier, both of them, in this set that are leaders that are going to be getting 9 to 18 reinforcements just for playing this Conqueror's Pledge, which means that I think they're both 3/3s, but that means that, let's say that they're 3/3s, even if they're 2/2s, right? You put 9 of these ally tokens out, that's going to be 18/18. You put 18 of them, that's going to be +36/+36. But for one of them, and I know that one of them definitely is a 3/3, then that means that casting this, only getting the 9 tokens is going to buff it by 27, and for the 18 is going to buff it by 54. So that's such a big buff. Oh man, this card's going to be really strong, guys. It's going to be really strong. Drain of the Last Blood Chief. This card is pretty cool in paper, and I was hoping that it would work exactly as it does in paper in Puzzle Quest, and it absolutely does. So when this creature attacks, you pick one of the first 4 creature cards from any player's graveyard that is not legendary, and you put it on the battlefield under your control, give it +2/+2, and make it a vampire. So this is super, super sweet, obviously. It's amazing. You know that I'm not a huge fan of playing with my opponent's cards, but I get to bring my own cards back. And if by some great miracle my opponent actually has better creatures than I do, then I get to take their creatures back. Like, AKA if they're running Urza. I'm going to take Urza. If they're playing Gaia's Revenge, I might take Gaia's Revenge. Actually, I can't take Urza. Urza's legendary. Scratch that. Gaia's Revenge, can take. Will do. But nonetheless, this card is super cool. Gives you a whole bunch of goodness for a very reasonable mana cost. It is quite strong. I very much want this. Forsaken Monument is on here just because I think it's going to be kind of cool. right? I don't know that it's going to be great, but maybe it will be. So while it's on the board, your colorless creatures get +5/+5, which is kind of nice. When you match 3 or more loyalty gems, you gain 3 mana, which is really cool. And when you cast a colorless card, gain 6 life. Now, the part that I'm actually really interested in is we've already got another card, that little Myr thing, that is going to make it so that when you match 3 or more loyalty gems, you gain 3 mana, which means that whenever you match loyalty gems, if you've got both this and the Myr down, you're going to gain 6 mana. And then that means that if you've got both of them down, you're getting 6 mana. If you're running a bunch of loyalty converters, then maybe you could just get a whole bunch of loyalty and a whole bunch of mana. Maybe you decide to run like Solemn Simulacrum in the deck so you can get even more loyalty conversion, and then some other beef stick, and you're gravy. So this just looks like something that could be really cool. I'm really excited to try it out. We'll have to see if it's good. It might not be, but it definitely looks cool. Guldraz Spectre. So this does not exist in the primary Zendikar set, which makes me think that this is going to be an exclusive. Maybe it's not, but I'm just guessing it is. So what I really like about this is it's a 5/5 for 15. It's a black creature, and it has, when you discard a card from your hand, this creature gains double strike until end of turn. Black is notorious for having weak creatures. This thing having double strike as just a black creature is super cool, because this gives us a critter that we can throw into our black planeswalkers. And let's face it, most of our black planeswalkers that are mono black are going to enable us to discard cards. And if they don't, then there are so many black cards that we're going to make you discard cards. Anyways, there's just so many things in the game right now that make you discard cards and draw cards that this is going to be really strong. And then it also has the added bonus of if your opponent doesn't have cards in their hand, it's going to get a +5/+5 boost. And when your first creature attacks, your opponent discards the last card without mana from their hand. So not only is this going to be a relatively strong creature, but it's also going to make it so that your opponent's discarding cards. I definitely like this card. I definitely want to have it. Jace the Mind Sculptor. I think this might be the only Vanguard on my Mythic list. The Vanguards look interesting. I don't know that they'll be great, but they look interesting. Jace the Mind Sculptor, though, looks the most interesting. So, not because of the art, although I do absolutely love Jace the Mind Sculptor's art, but the abilities. So, the first ability is going to pick 2 of the first 4 cards from target player's library and fetch those cards. You destroy the others. This basically just means that you're going to be able to draw 2 bonus cards a turn, and if you want, you can just throw some more stuff in your graveyard and have other ways of getting it back, which is definitely really sweet. It's always nice to be able to throw something in the graveyard. One of the things I really liked about the Tamiyo Vanguard is it let us throw 1 thing in the graveyard a turn. This lets us throw 2 things in the graveyard, which is good. The second ability at -4 is going to make it so that if your opponent has 5 or less cards in hand, you return target opposing creature to your opponent's hand. This, if your opponent has 5 or less cards in hand, is on like all the blue bounce pretty much in this set. Blue has been nerfed pretty hard in the removal department because of this if your opponent has 5 or less cards in hand. But nonetheless, it still gives your Vanguard a way of giving you access to removal on top of getting card draw. So that is actually pretty nice. And then finally, the third ability is destroy the top 10 cards of your opponent's library, mill 30. So when you activate this, if your opponent has 30 or more cards in their graveyard, each non-Vanguard card in your hand gains full mana. So that's a way of gaining a heck of a lot of mana. Let me tell you, it's every card in your hand. So yeah, that could be super tempo. Like you're drawing a whole bunch of cards with your +2. If you need, you can use removal with -4. And the +2 is definitely going to help you get to that -12 at some point. And when you do, you just give all those cards that you've been drawing full mana, and you do dirty things. So, yeah, Jace the Mind Sculptor looks pretty cool to me. Morag, Fury of Akum. Morag is beautiful. Morag looks like he'll be absolutely wonderful with New Nahiri. And even outside of New Nahiri, like, he just looks like he could be really strong in a lot of other areas of the game. When they come out with this thing's alternate art, I'm absolutely going to have to get it because it's one of my favorite arts on any Magic card. But it's 19 for a 9/9, which is already solid. While on the battlefield, your other creatures gain bravery, which is interesting. When a creature you control attacks, it gets +X+0 until end of turn. X is equal to their reinforcements. You'll notice that this does not discriminate against tokens, which means that your goblins, yes, I am a goblin lover, are going to be doing sweet, sweet badness to your opponent. But it doesn't end there. It also has Landfall Red. Reinforce each creature you control until end of turn. There's so much gem conversion in this set, be it lands, or even if you throw in the land forming, or, I don't know, Koth's first ability, you know, or Nahiri's lithoforming, or just destroying red gems or something. Like, there's just so much that's going to make it so that you can Landfall Red a bunch of times. Even if you're just running this with a bunch of beefy red critters, you're going to be able to reinforce them all. There's no requirement. Like, there's nothing saying, like, you're only going to be able to use this once per turn. So Morag looks like he's going to be able to do a lot of damage. Koth is, I'm going to say it probably in every single one of my videos, Koth is making away like a bandit in Zendikar. Koth is going to be disgusting. And Morag is going to be absurdly disgusting in Koth, so I can't wait to use him. Myriad Construct is a very interesting card. It could actually be very, very strong. There's another card that pairs incredibly well with it. It's a new land support. I'll go over that as I go over Myriad Construct, but it's 18 for an 8/8 with Defender and Kicker 4. So if you drain 4 mana from your hand as you play this, when this creature enters the battlefield, it gets +X/+X. X is the number of land supports and land support reinforcements on the board. It also has, when this creature becomes the target of a spell your opponent controls, destroy it and create Y construct tokens, where Y is this creature's power. So it's kind of like a Hangerback Walker, in that when it dies, it's going to go ahead and make a bunch of tokens, but it's definitely better than Hangerback Walker in that regard, because you're going to be getting more than just 8 tokens, because this thing, it's going to be based on its power. So as this thing gets more and more swole, you're going to get more and more tokens. That'll be equally swole, which will be super sweet. But it doesn't end there. So there's a new land that's coming out in the set that's going to reinforce itself every single turn. And so then when you pay a kicker cost, when you drain mana from your hand, I want to say, it's going to go ahead and lose all of its reinforcements and convert a whole bunch of gems equal to the number of reinforcements to your Planeswalker's colors. What I'm curious about, and this is really like sort of the make or break for Myriad Construct for me, is if Myriad Construct comes in and you pay the kicker, do you actually get that +X/+X before it loses the reinforcements? Or is it going to lose the reinforcements first and then this thing gets nothing? So we'll have to see, but if they do work together, this is going to be so strong if you can get those two going. Like, so strong, guys. Obun, Muldayaancesta. I have a feeling that this is going to be another one of the bundles, just because this is from the Commander decks and is not part of the Zendikar set in Paper Magic. But it's 14 for a 6/6 with Bravery, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, your first other creature gets +X/+X and gains haste and trample until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. It's also going to have landfall, so when you match 4 or more gems, target creature you control gets +1/+1. This effect can trigger up to 3 times per turn. Now, because of him going ahead and buffing one of your other creatures at the beginning of combat, it's going to be your first other creature, right? So this thing is going to have Bravery, so it's going to jump into that first slot, and then it's going to go ahead and give it to the next creature, that buff. But there's just so many ways of buffing your creatures in this game that this dude is going to make it so that you just can get so much power on your creatures. And it's got 3 colors, red, white, and green. So you can use it in a whole bunch of different Planeswalker decks. I don't think he's going to be overpowered, but I do think he's going to be very strong and definitely worth having. Philath World Sculptor is an 8/8 for 24, which is like super expensive, but nonetheless, yeah, you guys know me. I love Nissa Worldwaker, and Philath and Nissa Worldwaker are smushing, because this dude thing, I don't know, I can't call it a dude, right? It's a thing. It's gonna, when this creature enters the battlefield, you create X forest tokens, where X is the number of green gems. Now, this is when it enters the battlefield. So let's say that you're actually playing this in a Flicker deck, so you've got like, I don't know, the Teferi Vanguard, and you've got Thassa, which makes it so that you'll be able to flicker this thing twice in a turn. You're going to be making so many forest tokens, it's going to be beautiful, especially if you're playing with green gem conversion. So you could just play this in like a red and blue-green like Brokon, or you could play it in a green-blue deck like Kiora or something, and do horrible, wonderful things. Not only that, though, it's also got landfall green, where target elemental creature you control gets +X/+X. It can trigger twice, where X is the number of green gems. So not only are you going to be able to make it so that you can probably play multiples of these and then get a whole bunch of forest tokens, but on top of that, you're also going to make it so you can boost your elementals based on the number of green gems also. So I just see this being able to put out a heck of a lot of damage really, really quickly, and as a result, be very, very good. The 24 mana, though, might be prohibitive. We'll have to see. Shatterskull Smashing. This card is refreshing. So we are losing Electrodominance, and we are gaining Shatterskull Smashing. So we're losing a heck of a lot of removal. This is like the perfect replacement, in my opinion, for Electrodominance. So Electrodominance was a 6 mana spell with a stored mana of 10, did 10 damage to any target, and then you could give mana equal to its stored mana to the first card in your hand. Well, this thing is going to deal, it's 6 mana, and it has a stored mana of 10, and it's going to deal X damage divided equally among each opposing creature. If X is 6 or more, you deal X times 2 damage instead. X is the stored mana cost. So if you play this card right, you're probably going to go ahead and boost it up to 10, but even if you only do it to 6, that's fine, right? So that's going to be 12 total mana, which is 1 red Koth gem match, which is going to be 1 Koth gem match to do 12 damage. And then if you had them in a horizontal, you're going to be landforming and getting a convert gems to red land on the battlefield is probably how that's going to work. We don't know what Shatter Skull the Hammer Pass does, but I'm guessing that that's what it does, especially as it's the Hammer Pass and Koth of the Hammer, and Koth is originally from Zendikar, so yeah. But Shatter Skull smashing is going to be amazing, because if you boost it to 10, that's going to be 20 damage. It's non-targeted, so it bypasses hexproof. The downside to it is that you can't burn a planeswalker. You have to burn creatures, but nonetheless, this is super awesome because it's going to get rid of creatures, and it's going to give you a land, and it doesn't take up a support slot. So it's removal, it's ramp, and it's beautiful. Skyclave Relic. Oh man, I want this for so many reasons. There are so many things that I want to do with this thing. So Skyclave Relic is 9 mana support. It's resilient, so when you match it, it's not going to lose shields. It can't be reinforced, which means that every copy of Skyclave Relic that you play is going to be its own independent Skyclave Relic on the battlefield that is going to do what Skyclave Relic does, which is activate 2 to convert 2 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. Now, it also has Kicker of 9, so if you drain 9 mana from your hand as you cast this, when you cast it, you're going to create 2 more copies of Skyclave Relic on the board under your control. Now, there's a new enchantment in the set that's going to make it so that you get copies of stuff that you kick. And so you play this, you get copies of this, the kicked thing, right? You get a bunch of these on the battlefield. You get 3 of them. And then the copies that you get, you just play those copies, and then they also are going to get kicked probably, which is going to put more copies. And then you just need to determine what's the general sweet spot that you want to have of this on the board to activate the entire board with convert 2 gems to your Planeswalker's colors, so that any match that you make just starts this absurd cascade that's going to convert the world to your Planeswalker's colors, which means that if you do this right, it's kind of sort of like you have infinite mana. Like, you're just going to get enough mana to cast your whole hand every single turn, and it's not going to destroy itself because it has resilient. So yeah, this card looks super amazingly good and awesome. Like, super amazingly good and awesome. And did I mention that that other support also is going to make it so that it destroys activated gems on your turn too? So big win. There's a whole bunch of stuff with Kicker, but this is definitely my favorite. Tazri, Beacon of Unity, is a card for party. It's 21 for a 7/9. It is a warrior, so that is going to count toward the warrior of the party. While it's in your hand, it's going to cost 3 less for each member of your party. There are up to 4 things, so that could be in your party. So if you have a full party, it costs 12 less mana, which means that it's going to cost you 9 mana to play Tazri. So it's a 7/9. It's got activate 1 of every color to fetch up to 1 cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard from your library, and it gains 5 mana. Now, because it's fetch up to 1 of blah, 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 or blah, I don't know if that means that then when you activate it, you actually get to pick from the 4, or if you just get whatever the next one is. But nonetheless, because you're activating 1 of each color, you're going to be fetching a heck of a lot of creatures. You're going to be giving them mana, which means you're going to be able to play them, which means that you're going to be able to fill out your party pretty quickly. And as we have events that are going to require you to have a full party, I see Tazri being very, very useful for the upcoming events that we've got to the game in Zendikar. Turntimber Symbiosis is a card that I absolutely love. It's 18 mana to pick 1 of the first 4 different creature cards from your library and put it into play under your control. Then, if that creature's base cost is 11 or less, it gets +6/+6. And if that wasn't enough, it's also got landforming, which means that if you make a horizontal gem match when you cast this card, you're going to create a Turntimber Serpentine Wood token, which my guess is going to be a land that converts to green. So not only is this a green card that's going to give us something that converts gems to green, but it's also going to let us fetch a creature from our library and put it directly on the battlefield. At 18, that is a little bit on the expensive side, but it's really not too bad if you factor in things that, like Finale, the green Finale was 16 mana, and Chord of Calling wound up getting like super jacked to, I think, like 18 mana or something. So this doing that is great. It's not going to have a mana cost requirement like the other two did. If it's a lower cost creature, it's going to get buffed up, and you're going to get to create a land that converts more gems to green. So this card is going to be a must-use in like a ton of green decks. I love this thing. I must have it. It is one of my top fetch cards for the set. And the last card in this video is Zarathson the Trickster. So Zarathson is a dirty monster. So it's a 6/6 with flash and haste, and it's 15 mana, although it's basically 0 mana because of its abilities, depending on how you use it. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if this card's in your hand and you control another rogue that is not named Zarathson the Trickster, you may return that card to your hand. If you do, move this card from your hand onto the battlefield under your control. Now, because this thing has haste, that means that basically what you're doing is, at the beginning of combat, you're going to take a rogue from play and put it in your hand to put this into play. This thing is going to have haste. It's going to attack your opponent. And when this creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, you pick one of the first 3 non-spell cards from your opponent's graveyard and move that card to play under your control, meaning you're going to be stealing the creatures and you're going to be stealing their supports. If you don't want their creatures, you just hit no, I don't want their creatures. But nonetheless, this thing's going to get you a whole bunch of free supports, which is sweet. You put Ember Cleave on this thing or something else that gives it double strike, and you get it to take 2 things every turn, which is super sweet. So there are so many cards, guys, in Zendikar that I want. So many. And I haven't even gotten to the rares, which there's like so many. I think there are 63 cards on my chase list from all the rarities combined. There are that many cards that I want from this set. So let me know what the mythics and masterpieces are that you guys are looking out for most. These ones are mine. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.